Then here, once we have a population, and we study a sample, here we have a survey related to this is then just قلت لي ما بدينا ال 5.2 هذا خلصناه طبعا صح؟
نعم.
Okay. Then when we have a binomial distribution, when we have a sample, for example here we have 2000 colleague students بمعنى فيها 2000 تلميذ and we did the survey نسوي survey بمعنى سؤال to understand if parents put too much pressure in their children بمعنى إذا كان الأولياء يضغطوا كثير على أطفالهم حتى يدرسوا أو يضغطوا كثير ما يقولك في أي موضوع رأي الطلاب رأي الستودنتس على ضغط الآباء حتى إذا في ضغط من الآباء. إذا once we do this survey اللي هو زي ما تقول جزء نوع من الأشياء اللي حتسويها في البروجكت. once by the way البروجكت قلت لكم تستعملوا الميني تاب اللي هو موجود شباب you can upload it. it's معناتها إذا في صعوبات حتى تشغلوا الميني تاب let me know. يمكن نسوي زوم خصوصي للميني تاب أو أبعث لكم لينك اللي يفيدكم إذا في صعوبات. By the way, here we have n equal 2000 and we have favorite case بمعنى 840 طالب من خلال السامبل هذا أنه يعتقدوا أنه أو يعتقدوا 48 يعتقدوا أنه who think that parents put too much pressure in their children بمعنى 48 من الطلاب هذم يعتقدوا أنه الأولياء يسويوا ضغط كبير على أبنائهم. Then here in this case n equal 2000 بمعنى this is a sample. This is a sample size. The sample size, the size is 200, is 2000 for this sample, and the x is represent the variable when we have a favorite opinion or a favorite case. Then in order to have the probability دائما تعرفوا البروبابيليتي هي favorite كيس على الأول بمعنى 840 لأنه 840 يعتقدوا أنه الإجابة على السؤال هي positive أو students are agree about something overall بمعنى 840 من 2000. Okay, that's why we have 42%. Then this is an example. This is an example when we have a sample and we try to have an idea about to estimate p hat which is equal the favorite case divided by all. That means related to this sample. Then after that even it's not okay. Then we talk about binomial distribution. What is the property of binomial distribution? Once we have a binomial distribution, we have 4 properties. The first one, we have 2 ways. We have success or failure. بمعنى نجاح أو فشل. Agree or not agree. Positive or negative. That means we have 2 ways. في وضعيتين. Okay. فيها positive or negative. Success or failure. بمعنى نجاح فشل. دائما we have binary بمعنى حلين 1 0. Okay, we have دائما 2 ways. This is the first property. The second one is once we do a lot of trials are independent. بمعنى الفيرست trial التجربة الأولى when we toss a coin in 3 times the event are independent. بمعنى لما نرمي الكوين مرة أولى أو ثانية أو ثالثة all events are independent بمعنى ولا تأثير من المرة الأولى على المرة الثانية and so on. Okay, there no relation between trial. That means trial are independent. Independent بمعنى مستقلين عكس dependent. Then this is the second point. The third point, we have to fix a number. That means we have to do this action in n times. And the number have to be fixed. And the last thing is the probability of success or must be the same. بمعنى لما نقول probability النجاح أو الفشل ضروري تكون the same thing once we do the first trial or once we do the second or the last. دائما نفس ال P. Once we verify this property as we studied last year, we have a binomial distribution. بمعنى ملخص الكلام نسوي trial أكثر in n times, then this is the number. The trial are independent and we have two possible ways. And finally, the probability for the first way is fixed and the probability obviously of the second one, which is failure, is fixed, is equal 1 minus P. That means نسبة النجاح, the probability of once the probability of success is P, the probability of failure is 1 minus P. Why? Because we know the sum is equal 1, 1 plus 1 minus P is equal 1. The second point we have independent, the third one, the number is n, that means we have to do this action in n times, and this is all, then we have 4 property. The last one was used because we said the probability of success is fixed is equal P. Then to summarize,
هل لازم تكون عملية مستقلة؟
طبعا العمليات الفيرست ترايل والسكند وان والثيرد وان are independent بمعنى no correlation بمعنى لما when we toss a coin in the first time and we have head no correlation between the first try and the second one. إذا يجيك مرة الأولى head ما علاقته بالسكند تراي بالمحاولة الثانية لأنه المحاولة الثانية مختلفة كل شيء يمكن يجي no relation. أنت لما ترمي قطعة نقدية مرة أولى ومرة ثانية هل أنه في dependence between them؟ الإجابة طبعا لا. If we have a dependence then it's not a binomial distribution. لما تكون binomial من جملة الشروط
يعني دكتور عشان أطبق النجاح والخسارة لازم يكون مستقل.
لازم يكون مستقل. لا الاستقلالية between trial between المحاولة الأولى والمحاولة الثانية. بمعنى نحاول نفسر من خلال المثال بمعنى to have head and head for example. Okay, the and head no problem. حتى يكون معي فيه head and tail. Okay, we have two possibility. We have head and tail. Okay. In order to evaluate the probability of head. حتى يكون 3 مرات معي head. What is the probability? لأنه مستقل it's equal the product of probability of head in the first time head times probability head for second times times probability of head for third time. Here we use the fact القانون. What is the meaning of independent? Independent, that means probability of A intersection B or A and B is equal probability of A times probability of B. بمعنى probability probability intersection هي product between probability of A and probability of B. Then حتى تكون head مرة أولى وhead مرة ثانية وhead مرة ثالثة هي it's equal probability head in the first, probability in the second, and probability in the third. Head in the third. Okay. إذا ضروري يلزم head المرة الأولى ضرب head المرة الثانية ضرب head المرة الثانية. Here استعملنا الاندبندنس بمعنى ما نهتم بالترايلز الكل نهتم بس حتى يكون هنا يكون head المرة الأولى head. What is the probability؟ هي نصف صح ولا؟ Then it's equal half times half times half لأنه كل probability هي نصف. That's why it's equal 1/8. حتى تكون head in 3 times we have a 1/8. Why? Because we know this event are independent. Event the first head, the second head, the third head are independent. واضح؟ That's why the probability of the intersection is equal the product. هي ضرب. That's why it's equal half times half times half. Then ما نركز. واضح. Okay, perfect.
شكرا.
إذا then to summarize, once we have a binomial distribution, it's denoted capital B. N represents the number of try, and P is equal the probability of success or the probability to be agree, or anyway, the probability of, we have two ways, as I said, the probability of one way of this. بمعنى, here once we write probability of 50 is a B 15 0.5, that means N is equal 15 because we have 15 independent trials, and its probability of success بمعنى to obtain heads is equal 0.5. Okay, then we have binomial 15 0.5. That means in this case N equal 15 and P is equal 0.5. This is the meaning of binomial distribution. طبعا هذا درسته last year. The probability of capital X is equal small x is given by this expression. That means n factorial, x factorial, n minus x factorial, p to the x, 1 minus p to the power n minus x. What is the meaning of x factorial is equal x times x minus 1 times x minus 2. بمعنى, once we take an example, what is the meaning of 5 factorial? It's our is equal what? Is equal 5 ضرب العدد اللي أصغر منه ب1. 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Okay, this is the meaning of factorial 5. Factorial 7 is equal what, شباب?
7 ضرب 6
بالضبط. ضرب 6 ضرب 5 ضرب 4 ضرب 3 ضرب 2 ضرب 1. Okay. Then this is the meaning of factorial. Then once we have a binomial distribution, the probability are given by this expression when x move between 0 and n. X take the values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, n. لأنه لما نرمي when we toss a coin in n times, the maximum of heads is n and the minimum is 0. لما نرمي قطعة نقدية 5 مرات، في الحد الأقصى نجد 5 مرات heads، وفي الحد الأدنى نجد 0 head. Then the minimum is 0 and the maximum is n in general. That's why here x takes the value x, the small x is between 0 and n. The first information is the following. Once we have, once the population is large enough, لما n تكون كبيرة مرة related when n is large enough related to the sample، بمعنى لما n تكون كبيرة مرة related على الsample at least 20 times as large as the sample، بمعنى لما الpopulation تكون في الحد الأدنى 20 مرة أكبر من الsample، then any distribution can be approximately is approximately a binomial distribution. بمعنى لما تكون n الpopulation أقل شيء 20 مرة من الsample, then any distribution can be approximately by the binomial distribution. Okay, then if n is large enough أكبر 20 مرة من الsample, then we can assume we can approximate, not assume, we can approximate the any distribution by the binomial distribution. That's why the binomial is very important. بمعنى لما مثلا ناخذ مثال زي كده، لما تكون إذا انتبهوا جاست قبل ما ناخذ المثال، الشرط أنه the population is at least 20 times larger than the sample. إذا لما تكون البوبوليشن كبيرة أقل شيء 20 مرة أكبر من السامبل, then in this case we can approximate, we can see any distribution is approximately a binomial distribution. This is an example. For example, here we have this problem. The problem is the following. Here he said we have 10% of CDs have defect. بمعنى عندي 10% من السيديات defective. Defective بمعنى ما تشتغل. Okay, then the probability أنه تكون defective, the probability to be defective is equal كم شباب؟ لأنه يقول لي 10% خربانين، كم البروبابيلتي؟ probability defective 0.1 لأنه 10%. Okay. Then the probability to be defective is equal 0.1. Okay. Okay. Here we have to inspect an SRS of 10 CDs. هناخذ randomly 10 CDs. Okay. From a shipment of 10,000. Then the population contain 10,000 and we have to take just 10. إذا هناخذ 10 من 10,000. What is the proportion between the sample and the population شباب؟ تلاحظوا البروبورشن كم between 10 and 10,000. Then البوبوليشن فيها 10,000 واحنا هناخذ 10 من 10,000. واضح؟ We have to inspect 10 CDs بس. From a shipment of 10,000 CDs. إذا عندي 10,000 CD، عندي بوكس كبير فيه 10,000 CD. I'll take just 10 CDs. إذا what we can see? We can see easily the proportion between the sample, the size of the sample and the size of the population is more than 1/20. 10 على 10,000. طبعا this is small enough. بمعنى أقل من coefficient between them أكثر من 20 في 1000 مرة هي. Then we can approximate thanks to what I said before. لما يكون البوبوليشن فيها n أكبر من the size حق ال SRS أقل من 20 مرة السايز حق البوبوليشن, which is the case here لأنه here 1 على 1000, then it works. Then no need to do the experience, just we have to use the probability, because here he asked about let X is the number of defective CD in SRS of size 10. Then the requested is the probability of X equals 0. At what time X equals 0? What that means X equals 0 شباب؟ معناها لما حاخذ أنا 10 CDs كلهم يشتغلوا. You understand? لأنه no defective. The probability of no defective is equal 0.9. Okay. But the problem is the following here. لما ناخذ CD شباب ويكون not defective ما حيصبح عندي 10,000. حيصبح كم معي؟ When we use 1, when we take 1, we have 10,000 minus 1. إذا the probability to have 10 CDs not defective. حاولوا تفهموا التجربة. عندي 10,000 CD. حسحب CD أول وبعدين ثاني وبعدين ثالث ورابع خامس until 10. اوكي. لما نسحب الأول حتى يكون يشتغل كم البروبابيلتي؟ كم عندي من CD هنا في الصندوق في البوكس شباب حسب الكلام اللي قال؟ 10,000. كم اللي ديفكتيف؟
ديفكتيف 10.
لا ما هم 10. 10% ديفكتيف. إذا باعتبار معي 10,000 كم الديفكتيف؟ حيكونوا 1000. إذا حتى ناخذ CD شغال نو ديفكتيف في المرة الأولى حنسوي التجربة 10 مرات. لما حتى يكون الCD شغال في المرة الأولى البروبابيلتي كم حتكون؟ الفيفورت كيس اللي هم 9,000 CD كويسين divided by all اللي هما 10,000. إذا 9,000 divided by 10,000 حتى يكون السي الأول شغال. Is it clear? Not defective. هذا للسي الأول لأنه عندي 10,000 9,000 كويسين و1000 خربانين. عندي 9,000 not defective و1000 defective. You understand? Then the probability to have the first one not defective is 9,000 على 10,000. But what about the second one? حتى يكون second one not defective. لما نسحب CD not defective يبقى كم هنا؟ حيصبح 8,999 صح ولا؟ لأنه ما حرجع السي أنا حاخذ الأول وبعدين حاخذ السي الثاني and so on. إذا ما حرجع السي لما ما حرجع السي we have 8,999 not defective and 1,000 defective. That's why بالنسبة للsecond try we have this fraction, this proportion. لأنه أصبح عندي 8,999 not defective divided by all الحين 10,000 minus 1. ليه؟ لأنه already سحبت الأول. هنسوي الشغلة مرة ثالثة، مرة رابعة، مرة خامسة until المرة العاشرة. المرة العاشرة تسحب لما نسحب يكون already سحبت 9. 9 not defective لأنه أبغى x equal 0. x equal 0 بمعنى كل السيدات اللي حسحبهم حيكونوا جيدين. That's why we have this product of proportion which is equal 0.34. This event are dependent or independent شباب هذوما الايفنت هذا طبعا it's dependent لأنه حسب إذا الأول خذيته كويس أو defective or not defective. Then this event are dependent. However تفضل.
اللي بينهم ضرب ولا جمع؟
ضرب طبعا كله ضرب لأنه الأول ضرب الثاني ضرب الثالث ضرب
تمام.
ضرب. However
دكتور
تفضل.
لأن العملية تأثر بالثاني صارت ضرب صح؟
لا لأنه الضرب لأنه the first and the second لأنه يلزم الأول هنا حسحب 10 CD okay then P of A is equal. أنا حتى أسحب 10 CD أبغى X equal or it's better to write probability of X equal 0. What is the meaning of X equal 0؟ معناها إيه؟ معناتها حسحب الفيرست ترايل اللي هو يكون الأول not defective. بعدين حسحب السكند one. I have to multiply because probability of X equals 0. That means the first one is not defective and the second one is also not defective and the third one is not defective and so on. That means we have all in same times. الأول مع الثاني. Once we have first and second, then we have a product. لأنه this is the probability to have the first trial not defective. في second trial ضروري يكون not defective. That means 8,999 divided by 9,999 and so on. But as you see here, the events are dependent. الإيفنت هنا are dependent. لأنه زي ما تلاحظوا إذا if we take it not defective in the first trial, the second one will be different. But طبعا الcomputation هذه it's a little bit complicated. That's why no need to do it. I have to use what I said before. That means since the population is 10,000 and the sample is 10, then the proportion between them is more than 20. That's why we can assume as approximation, we can approximate it by a binomial. Then probability of X equals 0, we apply the binomial distribution. That means this formula, when small x equals 0 and n equals, then when p equals 0.1 and n equals 10, then we have to apply it. When p equals 0.1 and n equals 10, then we conclude the result without any problem. That means here probability of x equals 0 is equal 10 c 0 times 0.1 to the power 0 times 0.9 to the power 10. I'm sorry, I have to take x equal, okay, exactly, then 0.1 to the power 0 because I need it not defective. I have 0 defective. X equals 0, that means 0 defective. That means the probability x, the number of sexes is equal 0. بمعنى انتبهوا شباب لأنه في خطأ يمكن يصير للطالب أنه P 09 أو 01. Why P is equal 01 and not 09? لأنه I have to evaluate what is the meaning of x equal 0. X تحسب إيه شباب؟ تحسب الديفكتيف أو not defective. نجاح بالنسبة ل x, that means it's defective. I have to evaluate probability of x equal 0. That means no defective, no one defective. That's why P is equal 0.1. إذا السكسس هنا هو not defective. لأنه I need الx تحسب الديفكتيف. Then that's why ما أعرف قلت إيه بس اللي احتمال تلخبط بس here x evaluate the number of defect. x تحسب الخربانين بس x evaluate the number of defective. That's why success, that means defective in this case. That means the probability is equal, P is equal 0.1. Then be careful, we apply P equals 0.1 in, as I said before, P is equal 0.1 and n equal 10, and we have to apply this formula. Once we apply it, we obtain the same thing. زي ما تلاحظوا اللي يشتغل ويتعب نفسه يجد 0.3485. But once we use what I said as a property, that means it's a good approximation. That means this distribution is approximately a binomial. We obtain تقريبا نفس النتيجة زي ما تلاحظوا 3 الأعداد الأولى هي نفسها. أوكي. في سؤال؟ Then to summarize, once we have no need to use the first way. We have once n لما البوبوليشن تكون أكبر من 20 مرة من size of the sample. No need to use this strategy. We have to approximate by a binomial. But be careful, حتى البينوميال عندها 2 parameters. The first one is n and the second one is p. We have to, it's clear n equals 10, but be careful, p is equal 0.1. Why it's equal 0.1? Because this variable evaluate the number of defect. Then the probability of defective is equal 0.1. طبعا هذا درستوه last year اللي هو we can evaluate once we have a binomial, the mean or the expected value is equal n times p, and the standard deviation is equal root np 1 minus p. p هو قلنا البينوميال is defined under 2 parameters. n هو number of try will p probability of 1 success. Then mu x is equal n times p, and sigma x is equal root np 1 minus p. Then here it's related to the parameters related to the binomial. Okay. By the way, once we have a binomial, and once n times p is more than 10 and n times 1 minus p is also more than 10, then we can approximate any binomial by a normal distribution. When mu x is equal its mean and sigma x is equal its standard deviation. بمعنى لما يكون عندي binomial لما np أكبر من 10 و n1 minus p أكبر من 10, I can approximate it by a normal distribution. Okay. The binomial in itself, I can approximate it by binomial distribution. اعتقادي نتوقف هنا إن شاء الله. المحاضرة القادمة الساعة الأولى نخلص المحاضرة والتوتوريال ريليتد. في أسئلة في شيء شباب؟
كلام.
يلا موافقين. You can leave. It's clear.